first crash?
No comment.
Jet Perfectus, any thoughts?
He's got nice hair.
So we are talking about the movie Death Race 2050. Now this one is actually a sequel / remake of the original 70s version of Death Race, not the kind of the more modern remakes that started with the Jason Statham film. So this basically takes the aesthetic from the, I think it's 1975 original movie that starred David Carradine and Sylvester Stallone. And this basically is, if you haven't seen these films, it's essentially Wacky Races meets The Purge. So in the kind of the future, obviously 2050 in this case, we have America basically succumbed to its own commercialism, shall we say, and there's all sorts of like biting satire about the world that we live in right now and kind of in an exaggerated form. And the masses are entertained by a death race, which basically people race around the country mowing down pedestrians and getting points for that. And we have 5 kind of combatants, but essentially and each has a kind of unique personality. The focus of the story is on Frankenstein, who has always been the kind of the main character in this kind of series of films, this time played by Manu Bennett, who you may have seen in Arrow. He was Deathstroke, and also he was in kind of the Hobbit movies and things like that. Also, Crixus in Spartacus. So, what is this film like? I've got to say, this film is not going to be for everyone. It's a very acquired taste. It's an over-exaggerated, kind of campy science fiction B-movie, basically. Very much in the kind of the tone of the original film, but it kind of lacks the charm of that film to a certain degree. What I did like about it is kind of maybe some of the over-top kind of like references and things like that. Obviously, there's a not so subtle Trump reference in there. There's a few other kind of like little kind of like references to certain things in our kind of modern world, which is quite amusing. But the joke kind of gets a little old after a while. And obviously, it's quite fun to kind of see these kind of like these souped-up vehicles and everything like that. It does play homage to the kind of the original kind of campy feel to it, and everything in this film is kind of OTT. There's plenty violent. There's lots of kind of over-exaggerated gore, and the characters are kind of loud and cartoonish. But that's also a negative here, because I feel there's not a lot to this film. This is pretty much somewhat of a vapid and empty film. It is kind of fun, but at the same time, it doesn't feel as kind of earnest as the original and kind of as clever. It feels a little kind of like lazy, to be quite honest, and none of the characters are really that interesting. Even Frankenstein, who is by far and away the kind of the main character in all of the series of films, in this version played by Bennett, just isn't as kind of complicated. He's not as a complicated a character. There's very little plot in this film. It's essentially just the race, and we do have this kind of like a plot with this kind of resistance kind of fighting, but it's so thinly plotted. I mean, you're probably not watching this film for a very complex plot, to be quite honest. And if you just want to see some fun kind of like stunts on film, then you're going to probably watch that. But even the stunts aren't particularly fantastic. I mean, it's okay, it's a bit of an oddity. I do like the aesthetics of this film. I think it's a kind of quite a pretty film, and I kind of quite like some of the over-topness, but the joke wears thin, kind of like half an hour into this film. But overall, I've got to say, I'll give this movie a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.